Welcome everyone. This is the Hobbies podcast, and today we're doing episode 2, and we are going to be discussing the video game known as League of Legends. I am here with my co-host Christian, and we also have a guest today, Carl.
What's
Oh,
up, Carl? How are you doing?
I am doing fine. I'm doing very well, actually. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Hmm?
You're welcome. And what I'm interested about here first is how come you two play League of Legends?
Interesting question, actually. Because,
Well, I think personally, um, I assume this is for Christian as well. Our friends were playing League of Legends, and so our friends got us into the game.
yeah, it's mostly like, oh, a friend got me into League. Actually,
Yeah,
Mm,
I think I can speak for most people, like, either you search on, like, free video games you can play with your friends, and then get recommended, like, League of Legends, because, yeah, it's a free video game. Obviously, it's gonna attracts, like, some people to it. And then all from there is like, oh, yeah, my friends played it, kind of. Why? Because I know, for an example, we have a friend, Emil.
mhm,
He actually learned about League of Legends because it was free. So
mm.
I think the answer can be different from some people. But yeah, me and Carl definitely got from friends.
Yeah, so you think that it's
yeah,
a popular game because of the fact that it is free and how easy it is to get your friends into the game.
Yes.
definitely. It's a
Alright.
very good co-op game where you can be maximum of 5 people, and so 5 friends can play together, which is why it
Mm,
invites larger groups of friends.
alright.
Yeah. It's also like the concept normally of just League of Legends that got me attracted to it. Like the whole thing about, yeah, choose your champion to play with. Like the whole thing about having a certain champion that you really like. You really like the champion's art. You really like the champion's uh just lore, design, kind of what the champion is based like on, to what
Mm,
they're supposed to do. Like, for an example, if you like people who shoots out cool fucking abilities, that's like something you can have in League of Legends. And if there's a person with a sniper rifle, yeah, you can get that too. If you like bows, yes, swords, most definitely you can get like a guy with a sword. So
We,
I
are we are we allowed to swear on the podcast?
refrain as much as you can, but I'm not going to kick you out if you suddenly happen to do it.
You got it. Just
Uh,
making sure.
no problem, no problem. What about you, Carl? What do you think about this diversity of champions?
I think that the diversity of champions in League of Legends. I mean, there are what 160 now. I think.
Mm,
Um, I think that is genuinely the main reason why people stick around.
yeah.
Um, every match, every single game of League of Legends is different for the simple
Yes.
reason that there are 160 champions and there can be 5 on each team that are different. And so every game you are going to see something new.
Yes,
You're
definitely.
never in you're never in a million years going to have the same game as you did as you have had before.
Yeah.
And so this makes it very, very easy to sink multiple hours into playing League of Legends over and over and over again because you're always going to have diversity.
Yeah.
And include this with the fact that they patch the game every other week with new updates and balance changes. This makes it so then, even if some characters might seem very, very strong during a time period, they will eventually be weaker and probably swapped out for other strong characters. and so you'll have this constant change where you will see different characters be popular during different times.
Mm.
Yeah.
So playing League of Legends one year is going to be completely different to playing League of Legends another year.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. 1 week
Co-
is very different from another week.
Yeah.
So 1 year
Also,
is
one more
extremely
thing
different.
to put into this whole thing with like 160 champs, that there's always changes to itemization, and there's always changes to what item goes to what champion. Like, League is much more complex than most people think when they started out, because there's different like strategies for different type of games. There's different forms of like damage that you can deal in League of Legends. There's so much that can happen. There's also some form of RNG with like creatures that you can kill, like for example a dragon. You can get like different. It's kind of like an RNG game, which also makes it more fun to play because you never know what will happen. And the thing that Carl said, like there's 10 people on a map, and their decision can make the whole game to go to another direction than you thought it would be. Like, and there's also a lot of mastery. Like, you need to learn certain champions if you're gonna play them correctly, for an example. So people normally tend to call it one trick ponies, for an example. There's like that's basically a guy who plays just one champion, and that guy will probably be much better than a guy who play 10 different champions. Like, there's a lot to learn in League of Legends, because there's a lot of stuff in League of Legends, and as Carl said, they change it every month. So yeah, you learn also to adapt a lot into the game.
Right. Do you think that League of Legends is very beginner unfriendly because of this complexity?
I think that I wholeheartedly believe that the League of Legends tutorial is one of the worst tutorials in any video game. I think it is terrible at teaching new players how the game actually works. At the same time, do I think that there's a big barrier of entry for new players? Not necessarily. If you have a friend to coach you, which you definitely should in every single time you try out a new game that isn't a single player game. I think learning with a friend is so much better. And if you do have a friend to learn with, to learn teach you League of Legends, it becomes significantly easier. But trying to teach yourself League of Legends without, for example, looking up guides or strategies online is most likely going to be quite a struggle that will probably make a new player want to stop playing the game.
Alright.
Yeah, incorporate this. Like, you also have to factor in that the game in its current state has a lot of better players playing on lower level accounts, so-called Smurfs, that kind of ruin the experience for newer players because these better players that have played the game for a long time start playing the low leveled in the low level games, and this makes it difficult for new players to actually learn the game when they consistently have to fight really over leveled people and people of a much higher skill level.
Christian, you have actually been teaching someone League of Legends now recently.
Yes.
How do you think that has been going?
It's been going, I would say, it's been going better than I thought it would be. It's I recently discovered that the stuff that I know, like a veteran player knows about League, doesn't come as simple to understand for people who just start out their journey in playing League of Legends. There's like a lot of slang that you like, for example, path bot and then we gank. Like, for example, a normal person wouldn't understand what the F I said. Like,
path sounds like road, and gank, that, what does that mean?
yeah, exactly. So, for example, a gank is we ambush that person. Like, so if I say I will path bot, it means I will go to the bottom of the map and trying to ambush the enemies. So that kind of League of Legends lingo doesn't go well with like when you teach a new person to League of Legends, because there's, as I said, there's a lot of stuff to learn and you don't really know what to prioritize when you are giving out advice, giving out information for the new person, because it's really overwhelming for a new player to get all this information. And so I think to coach your friends this game called League of Legends, I think that is actually like, yeah, it's possible, but it's actually really hard. Most of the stuff a new player needs to kind of play to learn. You know, this kind of there's a saying like learn from your mistakes, trial and error, basically. Which is, yeah, you learn, you do stuff, something went wrong, what happened, and then you can kind of understand the situation more if you watch, like, for example, VOD, aka a video, a preview of what just of your recent like game, for example. So it's a learning game. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to learn, and it's pretty overwhelming for new players. That I can say for sure. Like, there's some few examples when I learned. My friend, like his name is Marcus. So I taught him like when I say some certain stuff, like, for an example, I will gank mid. We take that example again. Then I taught him, like, yeah, ganking means ambushing. That means that I will in a I
You
will
will
sue
flank the enemy from the side or behind.
Yeah, basically.
Basically, yeah. I think if we're gonna be a little cheesy, we can say that knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
And having knowledge in League of Legends means understanding every single passive and ability from every single champion, and also understanding how they would interact. And so if we go back to saying that there are 160 champions, I think there's maybe 159 or 161, but let's just say it's 160. And every champion has 4 abilities and 1 passive. It's not exactly that, but again, let's just assume for the sake of it. That means that there's 160 times 5, which, if we do the math real quick, is 800 different abilities or passives. You just have to know. And obviously having someone to help you and explain, like having a friend explain this will obviously help you, but even then, 800 different abilities or passives, and also knowing how they would interact, that will take a very long time to learn.
Most
So,
definitely.
yeah.
It's
Marcus has been playing the game for how long now? A couple months?
4 months.
Yeah, 4 months. And he still comes across new stuff that he has never seen. And so you can imagine just how
Yeah.
long it takes to get a basic level understanding of how
here's
to play
also
League of Legends.
something I want to point out. which I think is really important. Most people, when they like this can correlate to like other, like for example, sports. So, for example, if you're like a youngling, you're like probably like 11 years old, and you play like football, soccer, whatever you want to say, call it. You play that with your friends, so you don't train in soccer/football, but your friend does, and then you're gonna meet him on a. He's your enemy because he's your he's on the other team, for example. Normally, what you think is like, oh, but that's not fair. Like, I'm gonna meet a better player. Most of the times, I think the best way to learn is meet people who's better than you and challenge them. Because in league, certainly, league specifically, I mean, I've seen so much improvement from Marcus just by playing with, for example, us, playing with better players. Because when we queue up with him, he will automatically meet people who has played the game for a few years. And I can just relate because when I started out, I didn't have friends to play with that were better than me because we all started at the same point. So it ended up with me just meeting the same people kind of over and over again, like new players versus new players. And I learned the basics, but then I came to this kind of like stop where I couldn't improve because I didn't face like a big gap between me and my enemies. But now recently, from just playing with like people who are smurfing, people who's in way above like my kind of what's it called?
Skill range.
Yeah, skill range. I've learned that the best way to learn is meeting people who's better than you. And I've been playing the game for almost like 8 years, I believe. I don't really know how long I've been playing, but let's say 8 years. Marcus have been playing the game for 4 months, and the point that he is right now is the point that I was at like 2 to 3 years behind, back in time, basically. So he has come a longer way in a short amount of time than that it took for me. Like it took like 5 years for me to get to the point where Marcus is right now. I hope you understand. I don't really know how to put it. Yeah,
You clarified it well at the end there. Good job.
so I think important to always challenge yourself with meeting better players. I think that's really important when you learn a new.
I guess that's really good advice for any kind of sport or competitive hobby in general to face yourself against those who are better than you, so that you can learn from them.
Yeah.
Anyways, what about League of Legends is it that you two find the most enjoyable?
For me, that probably goes back to diversity and also progression.
Alright.
So we mentioned diversity a multitude of times now, but it is a very important factor, and being able to have a different experience every time you play the game.
It's amazing.
It gives the game insane replayability because no two games are ever the same. And for me, it is also very important to have some kind of progression. And League of Legends has that because of the fact that they keep adding new champions.
Yeah.
So there are way too many champions to just to be able to unlock all of them in a short amount of time. And so because all champions do not come unlocked immediately when you start playing. In some games like Dota, where which is very similar to League of Legends, all champions do come unlocked. However, in League they do not, and I think that I think that it's better. I think that League of Legends approach is better
Yeah.
because having this progression where after a game you might level up and get some points to spend to get a new champion, and just be able to have a new experience with a new champion every once in a while is very important, and it definitely gives
It's like a
at least
cookie.
I feel like there's a goal I'm working towards every time
Yeah.
I'm playing.
It's like a cookie that you get from actually playing the game. Like in Dota, I played that 3 times, I believe. And like I didn't really want to play it that competitive. So I only played it 3 times. It didn't really fell for me because I really did have nothing to work for. Because in League they give you these small dumb rewards that work so good, but they're actually kind of dumb when I think about it myself. Like for example, there was a point of time where all I wanted was a certain border, so I had to level up. So I play like 200 games in such a short amount of time just so I could get like a certain border for League. Like I think
Mm.
those kind of like small rewards gives you enough like motivation to play the game. And also the thing I think is the most enjoyable with League is playing with friends. It's sometimes, yes, you get mad at your friends and you probably like hate them for like 2 minutes, uh, but then you come back and you start to have fun. Like actual fun games are really enjoyable, especially with your friends. Like y'all laughing at some certain moments that just happen. Like it's a good way to start communicate with your friends and just overall have a great time with them when you can't be with each other for like, oh yeah, let's say you're in let's say you're in one country and your friend is another country. You can still play League of Legends, still have a good time, still like make memories with them. So I think that's the reason I play League of Legends the most, and also to see myself improve and also get better at uh or get better at working out strategies to win that game, for an example. I think,
Yeah, improvement is very important for sure. We
yeah.
talked about mastering a champion before with one trick ponies,
Mm.
but um, not all champions can be. Um, some champions are very easy to master, some champions are very difficult to master. And so, really spending the time to master a difficult champion could take weeks, possibly months, just to get really, really good at a champion. And when you do that and you feel the satisfaction of having improved so much from the first time you played the champion to the last time,
Mm.
I think that is definitely a reason why people
Yeah,
stick around.
I had kind of the same thing, and which learning a certain champion, as Carl said, some champions are hard, some champions are way easier to learn. But even though you play a way easier, like you play a champion that only has to really do one thing, and that champion does really well with this one thing, there's still something to learn from that, because then you can go more in depth with, like, for example, mechanics overall inside the game, or like
Yeah,
macro.
general mechanics.
Yeah, so for an example, you can learn how to, for an example, there's something called minions in the game, which kind of controls the map a little bit, because they are the one of the few ways to get gold. So you can learn certain like techniques, managing minions to do a certain thing, so you can push up. Like, it's like you can work some strategies out from that. Like, for example, there's a really well-known thing called a freeze, where you put your minions in a certain spot so the enemy's minions will automatically push, and then you can basically freeze the wave from continue pushing by killing the melee minions. And what this does, it leads to the enemies not receiving the gold that they need to get stronger. So just that core, like that certain strategy, mechanic, macro, whatever you want to call it, kind of shows that knowledge, as Carl said, knowledge is power. If you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter what kind of champion you play. It's kind of more like macro is the thing that you need for a win. But there's also like champion diversity, as Carl said, different champion that do different things. Like, for example, as I pointed out before, if you want to play a guy with a big sword, you can play a guy with a big sword, and you can learn his core mechanics. You can learn what he's good at, because, as I said, every champion has a different role that needs to be kind of like. So, for example, if you play marksman role, you die really easily, but you deal out this big amount of damage. You probably play an assassin. Well, your job is to go in, kill the enemy, kill one target, and then trying to get out of there as fast as you can. And there's juggernauts that are big, and they can take a lot of damage. They can also deal some amount of damage. Like the diversity in like roles and etc. I think that's, yeah. I don't really know where I was going with this, but yeah.
That's something you enjoy about League of Legends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different playstyles, and everything is still viable, despite the playstyle we prefer, perhaps.
Yes.
Alright. So, League of Legends has a reputation for having a very toxic community. What are your thoughts on that?
I personally think that the competitive aspect of League and in general all anything that is competitive will, in my mind, have toxicity.
Yes.
Because whenever whenever there is a competition, there will be at least two sides that are standing against each other with opposed opinions, ideologies, or whatever, right? And these two sides will believe that their side is the correct, or that their side is the strongest. And so there will be fighting, and there will be toxicity. So I don't think that it is League of Legends' fault for being. I don't think the game has necessarily created toxicity. I think that because the game is competitive, that has created the toxicity. And so the reputation of League being a toxic game is, in my eyes, simply a product of its popularity.
Yeah.
Right? So when League of Legends first came out, and more so when the streaming site Twitch popularized streaming video games, League of Legends was the most popular the most popular video game to stream, and possibly the most popular video game to play all over the world. And if a game is that popular, if everyone knows what League of Legends is, you can hear the name League of Legends and you immediately know what it is, then of course there are going to be stories about people being toxic. You are going to have a lot of different people and a lot of different, again, like ideologies and ideas clash. And so therefore there will be a lot of toxicity because of its competitive nature and its extreme popularity.
What do you think about this, Christian?
Okay.
Oh, you have to leave real quick. My bad.
Yes, but I can take this. I just want to say one thing about this real quick beforehand. So yeah, League is known for its really toxic kind of community, and I think, as Carl said, it's mostly because a lot of people plays it, and it's a competitive it's a competitive game where people are facing each other, and they have these like huge egos that, oh, I am better than League shows me to be. For example, if you're a player who just started out, you probably don't have that big of like a competitive spirit, but there's a lot of stuff in the game that can make you frustrated and can also give a negative effect which you reflect on your, for example, your teammates. Actually, now recently I have started to realize that I've been more toxic towards players that I play with, mostly because it has some form of relation with like what happening in my life. Like if I'm stressed, I will probably be a little bit toxic that certain day that I play on, because a lot of the toxicity comes from you being frustrated that stuff didn't work out as you planned, and that mostly comes to your kind of ego that you have, for example. Because let's be honest, most people have ego, and you can see the same thing in like football, soccer. You can see the same thing in basketball. You can see it in CS:GO. You can see it in most stuff, that people are really, when it comes to their own ego and what they can achieve with their ability, stuff can become really toxic really quick. I don't think that as a negative thing too. Sometimes there's good toxicity, or not good toxicity, but like good flame, because it makes some people play harder or play better. But there's also bad ones where people just say random stuff to trying to hurt you. And I think that's the more negative toxicity. But yeah, that's my opinion about the reputation.
Yeah, Christian definitely makes a good point here. Whenever you have something that is competitive, but also uh, depends on your own skill, you will have, because of ego, you will have people believe that they are at a higher skill level than they might be, or you will have people who have their ego shattered per se uh, in a situation, and in those situations, uh, their ego will create toxicity, and toxicity creates more toxicity. It's very hard.
I'm back.
It's very difficult to welcome back. It's very difficult to try and not respond to toxicity. So if someone is toxic towards you, the best strategy is to ignore it. It has the best effect on your mind, and most likely they will quit being toxic and they will go back to focusing on the game and start to have fun again. However, actually ignoring toxicity is very difficult because you feel as if they are directly targeting you, which in some ways they are, and so you kind of feel the need to respond. And you responding kind of, in most cases, gives them something else to be toxic about. So if someone calls you out on something because they believe, let's just make a very simple example here. Yeah, someone has an inflated ego. They think that their skill level is very high. You make a mistake. You are their teammate, and you make a mistake. Because of their inflated ego, they will see that mistake as extremely negative because they believe that you are also on their skill level because you are on their team and you're playing. You should be at the same skill level. That's how the game works. And when they see you make this mistake that they would most likely never do, they feel the need to call you out on it and say, oh, you probably shouldn't have made that mistake. Don't do that again. Or in some other toxic way. And you feel the need to then respond and say, oh, but I did it because of this or this or this, which gives them something else to be toxic about. And so toxicity creates toxicity. And this is very, very easy to observe when you are playing League. But I do not think that League is inherently the problem. League of Legends does not create toxicity.
No, definitely
Other
not.
factors create toxicity within
And
League of
I
Legends.
think I don't really know if this has to do with the subject, but I think League overall is a really like, I wouldn't say like addiction, but it can come to a point where people get really addicted to either get better or to prove themselves that they are better than League is telling them. For example, giving them a certain rank that they think they would not get. Like, for example, they get the lowest rank while they thought they were at least a mid rank. So I think it has to, the toxicity get affected on how addicting the game is to play. Like, there's a couple of times where I could see myself where I would be like, oh, I have to wake up, I have to play League, I have to get better, I have to work harder, I have to try this, I have to try this, probably this would work. And I think it's like you give yourself false hope that could affect you in a negative way, where you start being toxic towards people that don't even deserve it. You can just be like, oh, just you should just don't say anything, you're bad, I'm the better player. That's kind of the way I would think most people get toxic from, because yeah, they like the game that they play and they want to be good at it, so
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to strive for, but they're going in a
Unless
way.
if they're held back
Yeah,
by teammates and whatnot.
yeah, because that's a famous quote. Oh, I'm it's not me, it's my teammates. I think
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
here can admit that they have said it once or twice.
As recent as yesterday, probably in my case.
Same.
Yep, same right here.
So yeah, I think it has to come to do with like
Yeah.
people.
How are we doing on time, Christian?
37 minutes.
Alright, let's just do one final quick point and then finish this. So, would you guys recommend League of Legends for someone who might be interested?
Yes, and it's a yes and a no question. A yes and a no answer here for me, because League is, I would say yes, actually. Yes. League is a fun game when you play it not too consistently, but you play it some few times with your friend. Yes, then League can be a really fun game to play. But if you really easily addicted to, like, for example, video games, I would say don't try it, kinda. But because once again, I have played multiple games, and League is the one that have been stuck with me for a super long time. And I'm now more recently not trying to play it as much as I did before. And that's working out much better than when I was playing it daily. Like, I would say 4 hours per day. That was a very unhealthy like thing to do, because it really affected my mental state, and I was just mad and I was not happy at all. So I would say yes, you should play League of Legends. It's a really fun game when you play it with your friends from time to time, but don't consistently play it for, like, for example, 5 to 4 hours per day, because that won't affect you really good.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Right? Do you kind of agree with him, Karn?
Yeah, in most ways, yes. But I think if you were to ask me the question, do I recommend League of Legends? I would have to say yes, but also with an asterisk.
Right.
So, uh, I recommend League of Legends if, as Christian said, you have friends to play with, but more so if you have someone to teach you how to play, because teaching yourself is not going to be fun. And
No.
so having friends to teach you and play with you is going to help an immense amount.
Yes.
So should you play League? Yes, but but only if you have friends to play with, in my opinion.
All right. I think we should wrap it up then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a nice episode. I hope that everyone who listened might maybe consider League if they have a friend. And yeah, have a nice day.
See ya.
Yeah.